you don't have a common goal, you're asking people to come to work and go nowhere. And it's impossible to be committed to a destination that's not been defined. We can keep going on and on and on, but in those two non-negotiables, you should clearly see why you must have common goals and why you must have a commitment. Make progress. It is all about making progress. I happen to believe that success is a team sport. If you don't think like in teamwork, chances are it's going to be hard for you to be really successful because you can't do anything by yourself. I hear people say all the time, well, I'm a self-made man. You're a self-made lie. You can't do anything by yourself. It's all about teams. So I want to talk about some of the things that came from my book, Cultivate, what we call the 6 non-negotiables of a winning team. Because if you understand how to cultivate team, your big idea can happen. And here's why a lot of people get frustrated. They have an entrepreneurial mind. They start growing your business. And all of a sudden they get frustrated because they can't put a team together. I don't care how good your idea is. If you can't build a team, if you don't know how to manage a team, if you don't know how to cultivate a team, it's going to be impossible for you to take this great idea and go make the millions and millions of dollars that you think you're worthy of. I've met all kind of entrepreneurs who have poor social skills, and that great idea they have dies with them because they can't get enough people to rally around them to build something special, okay? Well, I got AI agents. Okay, you still need some people. I don't care how good you are with AI agents. At some point, you need to build some kind of team if you're going to do anything significant. So right now, I want to break down team from my best-selling book, Cultivate, the 6 non-negotiables of a winning team. Now, when you hear non-negotiable, don't try to negotiate. That makes sense to you? We call it the 6 non-negotiables of a winning team because this 6 things I'm talking about, these 6 things, I'm going to get my intern. Come on, intern. Hand me that book, intern. Boy, my intern making our money right now today. Great job, intern. I should have had the book ready, but it wasn't. Cultivate, the 6 non-negotiables of a winning team. Now, I don't even want to get into the story of it because it's really a brilliant story. It's about some friends who played golf, and golf is not a team sport. So naturally, when you play golf as a one-on-one sport, sometimes you never learn team because golf is not a team sport. Here's the beauty of it. They got into business, and many of them struggled because they had never been on a team except one guy. His dad died when he was young. In order to afford golf, which is an expensive sport, he had to work on some landscaping crews, and that's how he learned how to cultivate, and that's how he learned about team. It is a great book. Many of my clients buy these in bulk. But what I want to do is really cover the 6 non-negotiables of a winning team, but get your hands on Cultivate because this book is a parable. It's a great story, and we can teach you how to build your own successful team. Here's the first key that is non-negotiable: commitment. You need to be committed, and you need to figure out a way to get everyone on your team committed because it's impossible to build a great team without commitment. If you don't have commitment, people come to work with apathy. They come to work with a bad attitude. You need everybody locked in. I just spoke for a client, and their theme was all in. And trust me, I don't want to bust their bubble. That's a very common thing, okay? All in, because it's important to have everybody all in. So I want to ask you a question, leader. Do you have all-in culture? If you don't have all-in culture, you better go back Cultivate. You need to have everyone read Cultivate. But most importantly, you need to let Cultivate and the 6 non-negotiables be a part of who you are, commitment. I had breakfast this morning with a guy, talked about his 4 business partners. He said, you know what, we were like best friends. And that's why our business worked. They were committed to each other. They were committed to the vision. They were committed to the culture. Nobody was selling anybody out. Nobody was stabbing each other in the back. Commitment. You need ultimate commitment. Now, I don't have time to break how to get commitment, but I want you to understand that it's necessary and it's non-negotiable for you to have a bunch of people on your team who are committed. Because if they're committed, they're not putting their resume together. They're not thinking about leaving. And when someone is committed, write this down, they're going to bring their creativity. They're going to bring their energy. They're going to bring their passion every day because they're committed and they care. Don't you ever have people on payroll who don't care. Payroll is your biggest expense. The last thing you could do is have half your payroll don't give a darn about whether you win or lose or have success. Trust me, you need to have commitment, which simply means everyone's all in. 2, you must have a common goal. Where are we going? Right? Where are we shooting for? How do we know when we get there? I teach people all the time, when you have young kids, You drive out of town, all the way there, they ask one question: are we there yet? Why? Because they know we're going somewhere, and they're excited about the destination. And when they arrive, they can hop out the car and have fun typically, whether it's to grandma's house, whether it's to Disney World, whether it's to McDonald's, wherever. They ask you, are we there yet? Are we there yet? If you have common goals, your employees should have that same excitement. You know, our goal is 10 million. Are we there yet? Our goal is 20 million. Are we there yet? You know what? We want to defeat the competition. We want to dominate the market. Your employees, when they're committed, going to ask the question because they understand the common goal. Are we there yet? If you don't have a common goal, you're asking people to come to work and go nowhere. And it's impossible to be committed to a destination that's not been defined. We can keep going on and on and on, but in those two non-negotiables, you should clearly see why you must have common goals and why you must have a commitment. It reminds me, years ago, I went to training camp with the Chicago Bulls. I ended up leaving, going to Utah Jazz. Utah gave me $10,000 more, right? That was a lot of money back then. Not a lot of money now, but I left the Chicago Bulls, the world champion Chicago Bulls, to go play for the Utah Jazz for $10,000. But here's the moral of the story. For 5 days, I was in training camp working out with the Bulls. It was obvious to me that everyone there was committed to a championship. It was clear that if we don't win an NBA title, this whole season was a disappointment. That's the only culture I've ever experienced as a pro athlete where the commitment was to win it all, was to win a championship. And guess what? They won it all. They won a championship, but it started with the common goal, and everyone there was committed. And right away, those should be important to you because if you want to win a championship, you must have a common goal that everybody understands, and you need to get everyone committed to that goal. Here's a third one. You ready? Accountability. They used to call me Mr. Accountability. In fact, if you Google it right now, things will come up. Well, Walter Bond is Mr. Accountability. We got away from the brand, but most importantly, I understood how important accountability is. And simply defined, it's the ability to be accountable, which simply says I have the ability to step up and say, my bad, my fault. I got to do this for my team or we won't win. Now, in sports, I got to knock down my shot. I got to get rebounds. I got to play good basketball. But in business, it might be sales. You may say to yourself, you know what? I'm accountable. I got to hit my numbers. Other people in operations, I'm accountable. I got to make sure I order right. I'm accountable. I got to make sure in HR and human resources, I got to make sure we're paying fairly. I got to keep people motivated. I got to make sure that they're coming to work and no apathy. I got to be committed. Everyone in your organization needs to have the ability to be accountable. Which simply put, is owning your role, and when you fall short, you simply say, my fault, my bad. Stop pointing fingers, stop making excuses, stop justifying, and simply get it done. Whatever your role is, whatever your responsibility is, get it done. Think about the human body. We need every part of the human body to work. We need the heart to work. We need the lungs to work. We need the liver to work. We need the intestines to work. You need your whole body to work for it to function properly. Now, sometimes things go wrong and we have to overcompensate, but that's not fair to every organ, if that makes sense. You want a team where everyone is accountable. Send them this video if they like accountability. If you don't want to talk to them, let me talk to them. So we talked about common goals. We talked about commitment. We talked about accountability. Own your smack, a friend of mine used to say. Here's the truth. Some people go to work and they rent a job. Some people go to work and they own a job. I wish I had time to break that down, but here's a true difference. When you let me own my role, I'm going to take care of it. But if you tell me what to do, if you boss me around, I'm just going to do what I'm told and go home. How can I care when I'm just a robot, right? So sometimes you have to let people own their responsibility, and that's how you get more commitment. I don't want to get off track. I don't want to get ultra detailed because at a high level, I want to cover all 6, but you have to have a common goal. You must find people who are committed to where you're going, and you have to make sure that you have some accountability. I almost got off track. Got my little cheat sheet over here. Halfway done. Here's the 4th one, trust. Got to be able to trust each other. The warehouse have to trust operations. The sales team has to trust marketing. I have a client right now. The sales team is frustrated because operations are not getting the orders out in time. So the sales team is frustrated. And they're kind of going at each other. They're kind of going back and forth, and I get it. I'm a sales guy. You mean to tell me I'm out here making it rain? I'm out here closing deals and operations? You can't get the product there on time the way I promised? So right now, they just fired the COO because the COO could not keep up with the demands that the sales team was making. Keep it up, sales team. And here's why. Nothing happens in business until something is sold. If you got people out here selling, you get people out here in operations to support them because a lot of companies don't have a strong sales force. I have never met a great company that didn't have a strong sales force. I've seen dysfunction other places, but when you have a sales force that's going out here making it rain, the rest of it is easy. So whoever that COO was, I'm not going to name the company because it's not a small company. But the bottom line is this. The sales team was making it rain and operations couldn't be trusted. And all of a sudden, it created dissension and animosity because the operations team couldn't be trusted. It got so bad where the salespeople were actually filling the orders themselves. Yes, they would actually go to the warehouse, grab the materials, and they started fulfilling the orders themselves. That's crazy. But you know what? It actually got that bad. And we're talking about a $1 billion company. Okay. So I don't know what size your company is. Size doesn't matter. Bottom line is they did not trust each other, and that lack of trust hurt their business. And now they're trying to rectify it, and now they're trying to fix it. So we talked about commitment. We talked about common goals. We talked about accountability. We talked about trust. There's two more. We got to talk about communication. How do you talk to your people, right? Communication is important. You got to send emails. You got to do phone calls. You got to send text messages with the right tenor and the right communication. There's 4 ways to communicate. You can be aggressive. You can be passive aggressive. You can be assertive, or you can be avoidant, right? And so obviously the best way to communicate is to be assertive. Say what you mean what you say. You don't need all that sarcasm. You don't need all that extra energy. You don't need all that attitude. Speak your mind, but speak it in a way that's not offensive. And nobody will be offended when you don't speak offended. Sometimes it's just your tone, right? Have you ever had an email and the tone of the email was bad? That's crazy to me. You mean you took your time. You typed this note. You knew the energy behind it. And you still press send, knowing that you did not communicate that in a way that's going to build loyalty and chemistry and trust on your team? Now, I get it. Sometimes you're going to be firm. I get it. But communication is powerful. You don't have to be aggressive normally. You don't have to be passive aggressive or sarcastic normally. You don't have to be passive either. I'm just saying be assertive. Speak up, speak your mind, be clear. I complimented our intern a couple weeks ago. I said, I love the way you speak your mind, but I also love the tone of how you communicate. It's all in the tone. Nobody's asking you to be quiet. Nobody's asking you to stuff. For the most part, people just don't like your tone. When you have the right tone and people know you're committed and wanting to win, it's huge as it relates to being successful as a team. Now, I broke down 5. Let's review them real quick because I want to break down the last one, okay? 1, you got to have some commitment. 2, you got to have some common goals. 3, you must be accountable. 4, you must have some accountability and trust. That was 5. 1 more, chemistry. Man, chemistry is a good one. We have something called work expressions where I have the ability to break down chemistry. And I'm going to give you these 5 to you, but in another video, I'm going to break them down because you have to have chemistry. When I think about chemistry, I think about a band, right? A band can make music or a band can make noise. Now, I've been to some high school bands that were bad and they made noise, but I've been to some orchestras. Like, I live in Florida, man. They got FAMU. You heard of FAMU? When they had the Marching 100, when they make music, man, it's like powerful, man. 100 people making beautiful music is gorgeous, but you can also have 100 people making noise. So can I ask you a rhetorical question? Is your company making music, which means we have incredible chemistry? Everyone has a different responsibility. Everyone has a different thing they own, but together we're making music. Or, let's be honest, we got a bunch of people working here, but for real, Walt, we make a bunch of noise. What would you rather have? Music or noise? Here's how you build chemistry. We have something called work expressions. I don't have time to break it down, but at a high level, these are the 5 roles you need to have on your band in balance to make sure your team functions in a beautiful way. You always need an innovator. Every company needs an innovator, someone who thinks outside the box. But I believe every department needs an innovator. Two, you need someone who can initiate, okay? Someone who can take an incredible idea and make it happen. My wife is an incredible initiator. For the most part, how we normally function, I come up with these ideas and she initiates them and she brings them to life. And that 1-2 punch has positioned us to be credible. Now, could she innovate? Of course. Can I initiate? Of course. But in our best places, I'm innovating and she's initiating. Now, initiators can innovate too, so I don't want to put her in the box. 3, instigator. What do I mean by that? Calm down. You can just challenge things, not to be abrasive, not to be argumentative, not to be quarrelsome, but just challenge, hey man, is that our best? Does that go along with our core values? Is that the right thing to do? It's okay to challenge things as long as you want to win. I've been on basketball teams with instigators who just want to win, and they're not afraid to have that tough conversation. Now, there's a difference between a good instigator and a bad instigator, but you have to have someone on your team who's not afraid to challenge the status quo, who's not afraid to challenge the comfort zone, who has the courage to stand up and say, nope, that's the wrong thing to do, that's not right, and they're willing to make a stand based on core values, based on integrity, and not based on their own selfish ambition. So you must have an innovator if you want to have chemistry. You must make sure that you have an instigator, okay, if you want to have someone who keeps you on your toes, but you must have an initiator, okay? 2 more roles on my I team. Have a little powerhouse right here. Stay focused, stay focused, stay focused. 2 more. One is called the improver. Love improvers. Whatever you put in their hands, they're going to make better. They have great attitudes, they're committed, they're loyal, but whatever you give them, they're going to put some sugar on top. They're going to improve what you're doing. They're going to say something like this. Walter, I hear what you're saying. I like where you're going, but how about this? Improvers are so important because improvers have the ability to do exactly what I said, improve. Some people, they just work. They just a worker bees. Those are the 5 work expressions. If you don't have those in balance, it's impossible to have chemistry. I'll make another video later breaking those down. But I really want to come over here and talk about Cultivate the Book and the 6 non-negotiables of a winning team. You must have commitment. You must have common goals. You must have some chemistry. And you must have some good communication. You must have some accountability. And finally, last but not least, you got to have a team with some trust. There you go. Let's make some progress. There are 6 non-negotiables to a winning team. And today we got better, always win the day, and always make some progress.